Hello, my name is Mrs. Moran. In this video, we will review the creation of the United States Constitution and its ratification. Our founding fathers in Philadelphia created our first governing document called the Articles of Confederation, and it was adopted at the end of the Revolutionary War. The Articles initially left the national government weak to prevent a powerful central government like the British Crown. Here are some of the ways that the Articles of Confederation were too weak. The government did not provide a common currency. The national government only consisted of a Congress, no executive or judicial branch. The Congress had no power to tax or regulate interstate commerce. And each state only had one vote in Congress, despite its size. After a series of failed meetings and the infamous Shays Rebellion, our government leaders agreed to meet to create a new government, and they ended up writing the United States Constitution. The new government made the federal law the supreme law of the land, but left the states considerable leeway to govern themselves. The Constitution balanced the power between large and small states with the Great Compromise. The Senate would have equal representation, 2 senators each, and the House of Representatives would have representation based on each state's population. The question of counting a state's population was answered with the 3/5 Compromise. The 3/5 Compromise said that southern states could only count 60% of their slaves when determining their population. Now, back to the main idea of keeping the national government from being too powerful. The federal government was established with 3 co-equal branches: legislative, executive, and judicial, with numerous checks and balances among them. The whole purpose of the United States Constitution is to establish the federal government and then limit its power. If the Constitution doesn't say it, then the national government can't do it. The state takes care of it. During the Constitutional Convention, there are a few gentlemen that have stood the test of time. George Washington was the presiding officer of the Constitution, but he wasn't a big talker. He didn't join in many of the debates, but just being the man in charge lent credibility to the proceedings. James Madison, on the other hand, was the opposite. Known for being a typical bookworm, the father of the Constitution became James Madison's nickname. He seemed to have a hand in everything. Madison often led the debates, took extensive notes, and drafted the Virginia Plan, which was the big state proposal for the structure of the federal government, and ended up being a foundation of the final compromise. After the Constitutional Convention was over, our political leaders had to sell this new and unexpected government to the states. It needed to be ratified. The Federalists are those Americans who supported the U.S. Constitution as written. They advocated the importance of a strong, but not overbearing central government, especially to promote our country's economic interests and public works. The Federalists are similar to today's Americans who have a more liberal political philosophy and believe the national government should play a primary role in solving the nation's problems. The Anti-Federalists wanted changes made to the U.S. Constitution to protect their individual and states' rights, or they just despised the new government altogether. They feared an overly powerful central government would be destructive to their rights and a state's sovereignty. The Federalists are similar to today's Americans who have a more conservative political philosophy, who still worry about the national government's role in protecting liberty, individual initiative, and free markets. Here in Virginia, we were primarily anti-Federalist, with Patrick Henry and George Mason as 2 examples. However, George Washington and James Madison, 2 key leaders in the Constitutional Convention, were from Virginia, and they were also Federalist. Because of the size, power, and influence of the state of Virginia, our ratification debates were watched by all 13 states. As the ratification debates heated, the concerns about states' rights and individual freedoms seemed to be the most divisive issue. So James Madison, who also co-authored the Federalist Papers with New York leaders John Jay and Alexander Hamilton to promote ratification, he offered to draft the U.S. Bill of Rights, or the first 10 amendments to our U.S. Constitution. If the people wanted protection, he would draft them. As a Virginia native, he consulted our own state's legal proceedings for guidance. Specifically, he consulted George Mason's Virginia Declaration of Rights, which repeated the notion that basic human rights could not be violated by governments. And Madison also consulted Thomas Jefferson's Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom. This outlawed the established church for an official religion. The promise of the U.S. Bill of Rights helped the last few states ratify the new Constitution.